everyone. Sorry I couldn't be with you today, but you are going to get started on a exploration. It's a simulation on ecosystems and biodiversity. So a while ago for an AWA, you guys took notes on food webs and food chains and some of these terms. So if you are unsure of any of these words, I invite you to go back to, let's find out here, the AWA from week, right here, November 4th. It's under week 10. So if you are at all unsure or confused, there's Google Slides or I made a video. So if you need any of these words or terms, you can find those there. All right. So we are going to be looking at ecosystems and biodiversity. The question we are trying to answer today is how does food web complexity affect the biodiversity of an ecosystem? So there's some background information here that I will read when I go through my example, but I will not read during this instructional video. You will want to read this background information as it tells you what is a simple food web, what is a complex food web, just kind of some terms and how the simulator works. So you will want to go through that and it will help you answer these 6 pre-lab questions. All the answers will be found in the background information. Then you will be moving on to your task where you use the online simulation called Ecology Lab, which I will go into, to explore the relationship between food web complexity and biodiversity in an ecosystem. And just a reminder that our guiding question again is how does food web complexity affect the biodiversity of an ecosystem? The only materials we need for lab is this link. So when you get your document, you just click on the tab or click on the link, and then it opens a new tab. So this is the screen you will come to. And right now it looks like there's no simulation. You're going to be like, Miss Karlheim, I don't know what to do. You're going to scroll down and you're going to click this where it says Open Simulator. So click that button right here. So this is what your simulator should look like. Automatically, this is just what it comes up with. And before you start, I invite you to play with it, but only work like for like 2 minutes or something and like see what happens. So just to play around, I'm just gonna say, what happens if I put all of them on? So all of these lines are the food web lines. And then in order to run the simulator, you write run or push run. And down here is the population graph. So it will show you what's going on. You can also watch in this simulator. It shows the days as it goes on and it shows kind of what's going on. So here's the wolf. It's the top predator. It's kind of eating some grass. It's eating these bunnies and just kind of goes through a simulation of what it would be like in the real world. Here is where you can find all the different plants and animals. So if you want to look at one specifically, you can like turn everything off. So if I just wanted to look at the fox, I could turn all of these off and I could just get data on my fox right here. So I can see that after 70 days, there were 268 foxes or wolves or whatever this top predator is. I'm not sure. It just says top predator. If I want to know this peak, how many are there? On day 4, there's 808. So you can just kind of play around with it like that, just see how you can read the simulator, kind of figure it out. You can always click. So if I want to have a deer, have my deer eat plant B and plant A maybe, then maybe throw in a squirrel that eats plant B and then some kind of animal. We're going to say it eats the squirrel. And then you just push run, see what happens in the simulation. It goes for about 100 days. So we'll just wait a moment. But to me, it looks like a lot of my things died out because there's no pictures left of, say, like my bird or whatever this is and my squirrels. All I have is deer and some grass. So if I wanted to see my, what happened to my bird here, what is he called? Omnivore B. I would turn all of these off. And there's Omnivore B. So there was 0. So they died out. So that is how you work the simulator. And then before you get actually into the lab, you do need to identify some variables. So remember, you can identify your variables from the question. And I wrote the guiding question for a 3rd time right above. It says, how does food web complexity affect the biodiversity of an ecosystem? So you need to identify the independent variable. So what it says, what parameter or what like what part of the simulation are you going to be changing? The dependent variable, what type of data are you going to collect? I kind of showed you what you could collect. How will you increase your complexity of your food web? So you need to have read the background and you need to know how to make a food web more complex. And then you need to write a hypothesis. Moving on, then through the simulator, you get to create at least 3 different food webs. So I set up a data table for you for trial 1 of a simple food web, trial 2 of like kind of like an in-between food web, and then trial 3 for a more complex food web. So you might not need all of these rows. Maybe you only want plants A and B and you don't want C. You can black that out or cross it out however you want. Maybe you don't ever use the top predator. You can block that out. It's really up to you. You're designing this lab. Just make sure that whatever animals you select in the first one is what you're selecting for all the rest. And then after you did all that and figured out kind of what happened, you are going to write down your conclusion. And again, you do that in the claim evidence reasoning format. So remember, a claim is your answer to the question. And for the 4th time, I have your question right here. Evidence is going to be that data. So whatever data you collected, your dependent variable, you're going to want to be stating. You can use bullet points, but you need to rephrase it or tell me what you found here. And then remember that reasoning has these 4 bullet points. And if you do not use all 4, you do not get the 4 points. So you need to restate your claim. You need to provide appropriate, relevant, and scientific or sufficient scientific concepts. And this talks about biodiversity and ecosystems. You're probably going to be wanting to define biodiversity and tell me what it is. How did you know? And then give some evidence that prove what biodiversity is and how you know that there's more, that it's more biodiverse. And then you just kind of conclude. Say, overall, this is what I found, or overall, that is why, things like that. If you're still a bit confused or you want to go through an example, I will be going through an example. Please do not use my example in the next video as your lab. This is your investigation, so you will be needing to do one on your own.